2009, I had to leave work to take care of my family because my son had serious health problems and I had to take care of him full time. And then in 2021, I went back to work in the IT sector. And so if you do the math, that is a 12-year break in my professional life. And today I want to tell you how I went about going back to work after a long break. But before I go there, I want to tell you a little bit about my background. So I was a software developer. I worked as a software developer. I was a team lead. I've been a senior architect. I've even been the chief architect in a company. So I was very much a hard hitter in my industry. I always went for the toughest, hardest project, the most challenging thing that I could apply myself to. And I was exactly the sort of person that companies hired to get difficult stuff done. And I felt very proud of many accomplishments I had in my industry. And then when I had to leave work, before I could start going back to work, I had to address some of the issues in my mental and emotional life. After all that medical stuff happened, I felt drained, I felt de-energized, so I had to do some work to bring myself up into a positive emotional and mental state, and I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the practical aspects of getting back to work. In 2021, I declared to my family and to my friends that I'm going to get back to work. And the response was not very encouraging. Everybody told me that's not very realistic, that after a 12-year period of being away from the IT sector, surely things have changed a lot and it will be very hard to just step back in after being absent from it from such a long time. Even my husband told me not to raise my hopes and to be realistic, and that maybe this wasn't a realistic goal to achieve. Of course, all these people had very good intentions. They wanted to protect me from getting hurt or being in a situation where I might be disappointed. And so all that advice was well meant. However, I did not listen to them and I simply proceeded with pursuing my goal of finding a job in my field. Now, I knew I would not be able to find a job at the level that I was at before, at this very senior technical level. But I thought I could get a job as an intermediate developer. And so first thing I did is I resurrected my old resume and I had to put some kind of an explanation for the break. So I kept it very simple. I just put 2 lines explaining that I had to take time off from my work to take care of family. And I kept it very simple and very brief with not much detail. And then I looked at the different job postings for software developers, and I looked at what are the tech stacks that are required for these job postings. And so I noticed that there are certain things that are in demand. And so I chose one programming language that I told myself I would focus on. And so I decided to focus on C#, which is a programming language I used before. And I thought I could just refresh my knowledge of it and be able to pass the technical challenge or the technical exam in any job interview if I refresh my knowledge of it. So in all the job postings, I only applied to job postings that required C#, the programming language. And while I was applying, sending my resume to different companies, I was taking classes on C#. I installed a development environment. I was initially doing development exercises on my own. I found some YouTube videos with basic knowledge about this programming language. And later I even purchased an online class to give me a basics on C# programming language. So for 2 weeks, this is what I did. I just, every day from 8 to 5, I did programming exercises and learned the elements of this programming language. Now, I have to clarify that in the beginning of 2021, there was an element of luck involved. Luck was on my side, and that is the industry was favoring the job applicant. There was lots of open positions, and companies were hiring in a very rapid pace, so that made it a little bit easier to get those initial job interviews. I had several job interviews. I would say maybe 3 or 4. In the end, there was a rejection, but there was one job interview. I did well. The technical challenge was very easy. They asked me to write a very simple program that involved, a for loop and an if statement. It was super easy. And of course, there was the cultural fit interview. There was the interview with the hiring manager. And in the end, I got a job offer. And of course, I made sure to apply the same policy I've always applied in the past. And that is, I asked for a higher job offer than what was offered to me initially. And I did get a higher salary than the initial job offer. And that is something I advise everybody. Do not accept the first job offer. Ask for something a little bit higher. So, with great trepidation and lots of excitement, I started a job in 2021 as an intermediate software developer after being away from the industry for 12 years. Now, I was very, very lucky in that I was assigned an onboarding buddy to help me out in the first 2 weeks. And this person was super, super nice. I could ask any question and she would do her best to help me out and answer a question, help me out and make sure I was up to speed with what the team I joined was doing, making sure I had the right setup and I could do my work. I would say within 2 weeks, I was able to get work done, actually be assigned tasks and get them done. These were very simple tasks. It wasn't anything challenging technically. However, I was actually working as a software developer, and this made me feel extremely proud. I felt more proud in that moment after 2 weeks in that job than I felt in any job before. In previous jobs, I've accomplished really hard things, technically hard, logistically hard. I've managed teams. I've started projects from zero all the way to getting them deployed into production. I've accomplished really hard things in the past, but in this one case, I was implementing things which were not hard at all, and yet I felt so proud of myself. Here I was, I accomplished this thing that many people told me was impossible. Many people who love me and care about me told me it's impossible. You cannot go back into the field after such a long break. I felt more proud in that moment than in previous moments in my career. And I was super happy. I was getting my work done. My approach was to simply learn something new every day on the job. So, I'm not going to go into the details, but this team I joined was using a variety of technologies as their tech stack. And so instead of getting overwhelmed and trying to learn everything all at once, my approach is roll up my sleeves and learn one new thing each day. So one day I would learn a tool this team were using. Next day I would learn one of the technologies. For example, we're using Kubernetes or Docker or Azure DevOps or a variety of things. And every day I would just focus on learning one thing that would help me get closer and closer to becoming familiar with all aspects of the tech stack that this team that I joined was working on. And this worked really well. I would say within 6 weeks or maybe 8 weeks, I became familiar with all aspects of the tech stack that the team was using, and I felt that I had a good handle of what is it that we were doing and what is it that we're working on. One thing I did in those first 2 weeks, which reflected really well on me and made my teammates think positively of me, is I wrote an onboarding resource for the team. So as I was onboarding and learning things, I documented everything and created a resource that was available internally in the team internal wiki pages. So everything from how to set up the work environment, terminology that was unfamiliar with, a high level of the architecture, something that would help the next new person who joins the team have an easier time. And this not only impressed my teammates and the people I was working with, in fact, a senior manager in the company somehow found this resource, I don't know how, and commented on it in one of the big company meetings. And then other teams in the company, other development teams, adopted a similar strategy with their onboarding, that they would develop a document like this for their new teammates. So that was a very positive experience. And then very quickly, it became obvious that I'm very good, not just at the technical stuff, but really good at organizing stuff. I'm really good at organizing people, organizing projects, solving problems, doing the communication between different teams. So very quickly, I was promoted into a development manager and assigned to a different team. So again, I had to, in this new role, obviously the salary was higher now because now I was a manager. I had to get up to speed with the tech stack, become familiar with the code base, get to know my new teammates. But at that point, technically, that wasn't very challenging. There were a lot of similarities of this new project and the previous project. And as a manager, I found myself doing really well. I was accomplishing really difficult things that have chronically plagued this project and resolving them quickly, like very, very easily. And that is due to the fact that I had years of experience. I've been developing for many years before that, and years of just life experience. Just the fact that I am a certain age and I've had certain life experience, I was able to resolve a wide variety of problems really easily. In this role as a manager, the technical aspect was not challenging at all. We were solving very easy, plain Jane type problems. The only challenging parts was the communication, organizing things with our team, making sure the client was happy, the project planning, things like that. And those things I did really, really well. Now, there's a question that frequently comes up is what changed? What are the big changes that I've noticed from last time I was working? And there are certain things that have changed in the industry that I've noticed in that 12-year break. The big one was that everything now was in the cloud. The whole cloud computing aspect was new to me, and so I had to learn it. However, learning it wasn't hard. The concepts are the same. The other thing I noticed that was a big difference is in the past, in terms of databases, big thing that was used is a relational database. That's what everybody used. People use their relational database for everything. One solution for all problems. And now with the advent of cloud computing, there's a wide array of databases and each one has strengths and weaknesses. And so I had to apply a bit of effort to learn all those different databases. Now you have relational database, NoSQL database, graph database, file storage, um, key value stores. And so I had to learn what are all these different databases and when is the appropriate time to use them and which one you should use for each situation. However, again, learning this was not hard. I just had to do some reading and do some research, and it was easy peasy. The other thing that was new is the whole CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. In my previous job, we had a configuration manager, and his job was to build things and make sure that cycle was done, and it was done manually, and now everything was automated. So again, there was a little bit of learning there. Again, it wasn't hard. I did a bit of research, did a bit of learning, figured out how it worked in my team, and very quickly got up to speed with it and felt very comfortable working with all technical aspects of the environment. So although things have changed in the industry, the difference wasn't so big that it was hard to get up to speed with it. I was able to learn it all on the job relatively quickly and be fully functional in my team. So in this job, everything was going well. I got along fantastically with all my teammates. I loved my job. Everything was going fabulous. And then the company had financial difficulties and I was laid off. So after working in that company for a year and a half, I suddenly and unexpectedly lost my job. So at the time when I lost my job, I felt really sad because I felt really attached to that job. I felt attached to the company. That company had my loyalty because they gave me a chance when perhaps others wouldn't. So I felt enormous loyalty to the company for doing this. And I also felt real attachment to my colleagues. The people I worked with were so nice and so pleasant to work with. I wished I could continue working with them, and I felt sad that I wasn't going to work with them anymore. However, despite the fact that I felt sad at losing my job, in hindsight, I can see how that actually benefited me by absolving me of my sense of loyalty to the company, because I was forced to. I now had a chance to search for a job at a higher level, right? So I decided, well, since I need to look for a job, I might as well look for a job at a level that's one up from the level I was at. So I started applying for jobs, and I was very picky about the type of jobs I would apply to. And I managed within 6 weeks to get a new job offer at a higher technical level. I was still a software development manager. However, now I was solving much harder technical problems, right? So in my new job, I was managing 2 teams, 16 people in total. Each project was development from scratch, and I was operating at a higher level technically. And by operating in that higher level, my salary was higher, which felt very nice. So again, in this job, I was performing really well. I was having a good time. Everything was going well. And once again, I lost my job because of this crazy economic situation that we're living in. So before we proceed, I want to tell you about this book I've written. It's a picture book for grown-ups about a garden gnome that wants to be a computer programmer or a software developer. And it's sort of my love letter to this profession, the profession being a software developer. And it's available online, or you can get an e-copy for free by joining my mailing list. Just go to ihave.com/free-ebook. And while you're there, check out some of my novels that I've published. For example, check out Take the Highway, a novel about overcoming heartbreak. I think you'll enjoy reading it. Now, why am I making this video? The reason I'm making this video is to encourage anybody who's in a similar situation to just go for it. Essentially, I am making the video I wish I found 3.5 years ago. When I started on this journey, I wish I had somebody to encourage me and tell me, just go for it. It's gonna work out. So I've met several people, and specifically women, who worked in the IT industry and for a variety of reasons also had to leave work for family reasons. And they've told me, well, my career is over. I can never go back to my work. And I was able to encourage them and motivate them to think differently, And I remember one specific case. I told this person, well, do I have this story for you? And I told her my story of how I went back to work, and that motivated her to do the same. So really, I am making this video for anyone who's thinking about getting back to work after a long interruption. You might be surprised by how easy it is to get back into the swing of things if you're doing something you really, really enjoy. Now, again, after a year and a half in that last job, I also lost my job. And I thought, well, I did it once. Maybe I can do it again. Maybe one more time I can find a job that's even higher and even more challenging than the previous position I was in. And I'm currently applying for jobs and going to job interviews. So we'll see. I'll keep you updated on that. And hopefully it works out. In conclusion, all I want to say is, number one, getting back to work was much easier than I expected it would be. Other people said it was impossible. It wasn't impossible. And even I thought it would be hard. But the reality is, it was much easier than even I thought it would be. It was super easy. I just fell back into it, got into the swing of things, and just felt very happy and very comfortable doing what I've always loved doing. And the second thing I want to tell you is, never underestimate the results you will achieve if you have a positive attitude and determination to just go for it.